Sweet. Thank you all for coming. This is kind of my home. My name is Suresh, and I live here in this condominium complex called Jackson Place Co-Housing, and this is one of our common spaces. So welcome. It's really amazing to be able to make use of this space and to support such an amazing organization. I'd like to tell you a little bit about why I am involved with this organization. I am a tech bro.
Tech sibling.
Technology sibling is the preferred term, New York Times style guide. Life is pretty good for me and my wife and our 3 kids. When I moved to Seattle in 1999, 25 years ago, my rent was only about $250 a month. And the dog is right, it's actually a little bit lower, about $215 a month. And I have seen just how dramatically the cost of housing has increased here in our city and the devastating humanitarian impact it has had on our neighbors. I have seen friends forced to move out of the city, take on extra jobs, and as many of you know here, our housing crisis has had devastating consequences for some of our most vulnerable neighbors, and they have ended up living in their cars or on the street. And that is why I have been so obsessed with making housing affordable here in Seattle and throughout every big city in America. We all share the same problems. A little story about how I got involved with House Our Neighbors. I've been volunteering with a group called Tech for Housing. How many Tech for Housing folks do we have here? Awesome, thank you for coming out here. And about 2.5 years ago, I was really worried about the Compassion Seattle voter initiative and the harm it would have on our most vulnerable neighbors. And I turned to one of my mentors, Laura Lowe from Share the Cities. How many Share the Cities folks are here? Right on. And she said, you need to talk to Tiffany and Ty. I didn't know who those people were, but they called me. And I put them on my speakerphone, and I said, I'm really worried about this, and I have some ideas about how to solve this problem. How many of you follow Ty on Twitter? You will know that Ty does not edit. And Ty listened to the ideas I had for combating this brazen attempt to harm our most vulnerable neighbors in order to just win an election without making it seem like big money was trying to purchase that election. And Ty, remarkably, edited herself and said, you know, that's not really something I could get behind. But she said, you know what, Tiffany and I are putting together a coalition. And together they put together an extraordinary coalition. Everyone has been here. Representative Frank Chop, so many members of our labor unions, DSA folks are here, and just an enormous coalition to fight Compassion Seattle. And they won. And then they didn't stop. They said, we are not just going to stop evil, we are actually going to make sure that we can house our neighbors. And then actually, Ty was very polite to me, but I will translate it into Ty Twitter speak. She said, get in, loser. We are going to change the world. And that is how I met Tiffany and Ty. And as you may know, we worked so hard and won I-135. It created a publicly owned housing developer. And that was brutally hard. I see many familiar faces here who stood in the rain collecting signatures. But we are just getting started, and Tiffany is going to tell you what's next.
Thanks, Rick. Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany McCoy. I'm currently the Advocacy Director for Real Change for the past 6.5 years. Who has a Real Change vendor? Come on.
Not enough hands.
Not enough hands in the air. Find us after for that. I'm also now the Policy and Advocacy Director for House Our Neighbors, the organization that we're here launching this evening. And I want to point out my co-director, Naisheen Fu, right here. It is Naisheen and I on the stage. staff of House Our Neighbors as we embark on this journey to change Seattle and to change the world, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but just wanted to introduce myself. I'll be emceeing this short speaking presentation, I forgot about this part. Here we go. Yeah, it's good. But I do want to introduce Ty Reed. How many folks already know Ty? I would imagine the vast majority in here. All right, well, Ty is my co-chair. She will tell you how we started House Our Neighbors and how we got involved and what's next and whatever else she has in store for you tonight. But I'll just say Ty is one of my political foundation. I always look to Ty and talk to Ty, and if I have a perspective on something, I'll take it to Ty, and she will, again, like Suresh said, very diplomatically or not diplomatically, like, no, that's stupid, we should do this instead, or no, that's actually the false way to think about it, we should think about it this way. And it is just so important for us to not get within our own echo chambers and not to only talk to people who agree with us all the time or who try to steer us in the way that they think we want them to steer us. It's important to stay with folks who are going to always be challenging you so that we're doing what's right and not becoming complacent. So Ty is that for me, one of my dear friends, and I'm going to turn it over to her to talk to you all.
I did not know there'd be a fan club moment awkward. As Tiffany said, my name is Ty, she, her pronouns, and I'm really excited here to be here today. Really feeling emotional for a lot of reasons, but I do want to talk about our origins, which, if you've heard me talk at all, do I have to speak to this? I'll do it. If you've heard me talk at all, you've heard me mention this almost at every time that I have an opportunity to talk about House Our Neighbors. It is important to talk about the fact that we came out of this idea that people were willing to acquiesce. You know, the story of Compassion Seattle isn't that everybody in Seattle was against it. A lot of people were for it. A lot of people were going to roll over on it. A lot of nonprofits, a lot of progressive groups, a lot of labor unions were willing to accept the bare minimum. Because that's kind of what we're told, is that, like, if this is the least that the right wing's going to do, if this is the least that the corporate people are going to do, then we should probably accept it. And we saw a lot of people in our circles actually turn and, debate us against Compassion Seattle before it was defeated in court. And so the reason why, Suresh and Tiffany point to the fact that I'm always willing to say that's not just a dumb idea, but that is at the root of why things have failed in Seattle. We don't say that. We don't do that. And we haven't for a really long time. And it was really important that when we brought all the people together for House Our Neighbors, that it was people who's going to be uncompromising, who are not going to be people with power who said that we should just acquiesce and that there's some way to work with big business, but that we should actually fight again. And what I'm afraid of as we face a conservative or centrist or however you want to call it council isn't that we're going to get a bunch of people who we're fighting against. It's going to be a bunch of people we're acquiescing with constantly. That it isn't going to be some raging fight for everything, because we've already let that fight die. We've let it die with the drug bill. We've let it die with ShotSpotter. We've let it die with them not doing anything about sweeps. Yesterday, I was at the Women in Black Memorial honoring 34 people, including a Real Change vendor who had died just in October alone. And part of that is because we have acquiesced to the idea that the mayor's just going to do what he's going to do. The council's just going to do what they're going to do. And what I really appreciated with Han was that we didn't do that. We were in a group of people who were like, we should ask for all this money. We should make all of the housing, social housing. We should be able to appropriate fucking city land for children. Within limits, we changed some of that. And we're going to continue changing laws so that social housing can truly thrive. But that's the kind of hope that I think that we need going into 2024. Yes. Because if you do follow me on Twitter, I'm like literally not an optimistic person in terms of the short term, right? I do think that we should always strive for liberation and that we should always be aligning ourselves with people who are struggling. But Seattle has really dampened my hope this year for a lot of different reasons, and I know we're all feeling this. But this is something I feel hope about. This is a group of people that I think are going to hear, oh, you're asking for too much, or someone else is going to do a progressive tax and maybe you shouldn't, or, it's not going to pass at the state level, so we shouldn't bother. That's going to be said about everything all the time, and I know for a fact, the reason I really respect Tiffany is she's with me there. She doesn't want to acquiesce all the fucking time. And so I really appreciate people being here today. And I know a lot of you people are fighters here. We have people who are in Nicholsville who have been fighting along with a real working class struggle for a really long time. We have some important voices and important people in the room. So as we fight alongside each other, we have to make sure we're taking everybody with us. And so I appreciate everybody being here today. I'm sure there will be another donate ask. And I always ask for different things on Twitter. You probably see me retweet all kinds of financial asks, but they're all fucking important. And I know people in this room have money, and I know people in this room have access to people who have money. So tell them about how their money matters, and how their money changes policy, and how their money changes people's lives, and gives people meals every week, and gets people's tents and people's sleeping bags all the time, because there is a war being waged on poor people, and it's pretty much just like this many people in the city fighting against it. So bring people in and keep fighting. So thank you everybody for being here.
Why did we do this through an initiative? Why did we not go through the legislature? Why is House Our Neighbors becoming an organization and not just staying as a coalition? Practically speaking, it's becoming an organization because we have outgrown the generosity and the home of Real Change, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, that has been my home for 6.5 years. I am who I am because of that organization. And frankly, it's because of the close proximity and the ability to work with vendors who are unhoused, who are housing unstable, and to be able to work with folks from Nicholsville and Share and Wheel over the years. Those communities keep me grounded and keep me from wanting to become a liberal who believes that becoming friends and rubbing elbows with electeds is the best way to make change in the world. Suffice to say, while we have some really rad representatives, Representative Chop in this room, who's a staunch supporter of social housing and other efforts, yes. If it was the case that legislators did what the people wanted, we wouldn't even be here today. So anyways, but we are here today because of that. And we use the power of the initiative because legislators do not listen to the people. Public opinion polls on everything. I mean, right? We wanted to bring up the genocide that is happening in Gaza right now. And we want to take a moment for that. But how do we talk about just the genocide that's going on in Gaza and then not also look at what's happening in the Congo and all of these other neo-colonial wars that are happening? But then also looking as what Ty brought up earlier, the death that's actually happening also here locally to our unhoused neighbors. It is everywhere. So where do we find hope? Where do we find inspiration? Where do we actually create change instead of continuing to rely on city council members or state legislators getting in there and making change? We do that through the power of the ballot, and we do that through the power of the people. And that is why we are forming this organization, to take those efforts forward, and again, because we've outgrown Real Change. So incredibly thankful for Real Change being the home of this, like the ability to launch from there and to create this organization. But we also use the initiative, and we're going to use the initiative here again in a couple of months to fund the social housing developer, as we promised voters in the last initiative. But you know, so many people asked us, like, why did you not try to just do this through the city council? It's the most progressive city council that we've had in a long time. Or, yeah, why didn't you try to go through the current public housing authorities and get them to develop this program? And our answer was, we do not want to have these conversations in closed rooms, in backdoor meetings, away from the public. We want to have these conversations in the public and get people inspired for something, because what these folks are doing is not inspiring. It's killing people, to be perfectly honest. So that's why we went the initiative route. And I still remember election night. Getting there, and Ty running across the room of Washington Hall and like tapping on my shoulder and saying, "Hey, we're winning." And I was like, "No, we're not. No way." But we were winning by 5 points on election night. So that's just suffice to say that the ballot is a really important tool. I want to congratulate Tacoma for All on their recent success. Passing one of the strongest tenants' rights bills in the state through the initiative. $300,000 were poured or more from the real estate. $370,000 were poured in against that by real estate lobby. And they're looking to do another initiative, and we're getting ready for our next initiative. And that is going to be a key tool of House Our Neighbors, is the initiative and even the referendum system. So the referendum system here is not binding, it's not passing law, but it is still showing legislators and the people what the public opinion is in a more stronger form. So just saying, like, we have like 7 campaigns down the line that we're looking at. But this organization is going to focus on 3 things, as you can see from this banner. It is social housing, that is the crux, that is the cornerstone, but it's also climate action, and it is connected communities. Because this debate that I've become very aware of between whether or not you're a YIMBY or a NIMBY, and if you don't know it, I really think that's fine. You don't need to know. Just why I bring that up is just, we talked about throughout the campaign that we need to build social housing, but we do need to change zoning in the city of Seattle. Redlining and single family zoning is still a reality, and it is pricing our neighbors out of this city. We also do not have building standards in the city that actually are preparing us for climate change, which is here right now. And we have wildfire season every single year now, but we are not creating buildings that are going to be climate neutral and are going to be carbon sinks. All of these words, I couldn't tell you what they are, but I know them now from talking to architects. And we just also do not have a plan as a city for how we're going to pedestrianize and create neighborhoods where you do not have to be reliant on cars. So, yeah. So that's our focus. That is our effort. That's why we're launching this organization. I'm deeply grateful to Naisheen for doing this with me. I still remember asking Naisheen to meet me at Miro. It's a great tea shop in Ballard. If you don't know it, it's phenomenal. And I was just like super excited, and I was like, Naisheen, I have this idea, and I really think that we should do it together. And I presented it, and she was pretty cool with it, like right off the bat. And here we are launching this organization together, and just thank you so much. You're amazing. I want to be very clear that while I've been a constant throughout the last couple of campaigns, and Ty and others, this is a community effort, period. We would not have won social housing without all of the folks in this room. And I'm going to take a little bit of time to recognize, and then I promise I'll turn it to Naisheen, and then we'll be done with the talking. First, I want to recognize DSA. Can folks from DSA please raise hands? We would not have passed Initiative 135 without DSA. DSA were one of our most vociferous, I think that's the word I want, door knockers, and specifically Sydney and others, and Eric, and others, I'm sure, and Ben. You want to get into apartment buildings, you send them out and they will go into those apartment buildings. Because we knew that it was going to be renters that were going to win us this election, and I am not comfortable going to apartment buildings, sorry to say. We all have our skills, but they would, and they were just ready to do that and were not scared. And so just being able to do that, and Sydney was one of our top signature gatherers, and just DSA generally, we couldn't have done it without you. You're an incredible partner, and I look forward to us winning this next victory. So thank you to Seattle DSA. I next want to recognize Washington Community Action Network. Waldo. Hello, Waldo. Rochelle did leave, and I know Mauricio's, gallivanting. But Washington Can was another key partner that we would not have won this initiative without them. Their field effort is one of the most formidable, and they were out there gathering signatures, door knocking. We were also in a special election, for those who don't remember, so we were door knocking in the sleet and the rain and the snow, during the holidays, and they were always out there. And then also just Mauricio, who is not here, who is actually now on the board of the C4, was also just a political mentor and ally, and just Waldo's support and Mary's and the field team, just phenomenal, and looking forward to working with you all in the next initiative as well. Yeah. Definitely my friends from Tech for Housing. Please raise your hands again. I think I saw Apu earlier. Is Apu still here? Apu! There's Apu! So I just want to, Tech for Housing, love you all. Don't ever go away. But Apu, I just want to specifically call you out if I might, because it was Apu and Jacob who went to the Capitol Hill Farmers Market every weekend to gather signatures and to talk to voters about I-135. Tech for Housing was out there like every weekend for, I think, the entire campaign. But APU was one of the main leaders of that, and at the U District Farmers Market, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, yeah, of course. And then APU actually ended up with Tech for Housing taking over the Capitol Hill Farmers Market. And for those who run initiative campaigns or any campaign, having endorsers, not just endorse in name, but also doing work is incredibly vital and important. And we could just rely, just like we could on DSA and Washington Can, on Tech for Housing and APU being out there every weekend talking to voters. So thank you very much. I already mentioned Representative Chop, but Representative Chop is going to help the social housing developer to get a bunch of land and is very supportive of a couple of changes and rule changes that we want to make at the state level as well. For those who do not know, social housing actually is not eligible to tap into the Housing Trust Fund at the state level, which is the largest pot of money for affordable housing. So Representative Chop is going to help us with that, and we have a couple of other folks in power that want to help with that as well. So thank you very much for your support. Not a lot of folks in power really like social housing. I'm going to just give you a little teaser there. I also just want to recognize as well Francesca Oaksfern. All of our incredible design work is Francesca. Yeah, you're amazing. And we're getting ready to get the initiative website going as well. She's ready for that. And then I'm going to finish with two more. I would like to recognize as well the steering committee of House Our Neighbors. So could actually steering committee come up here? I'm sorry, I'm going to give you extra love. Up, up, up. Hi, Myra. I know, there you all are. There you all are. Yes. I don't know where Suresh, there you are. You are, come on, Jesus Christ. I know. So this is the steering committee. These are the folks that helped us to win I-135. They were the ones that answered my questions, helped me with strategy, who we met weekly sometimes, who led work groups, because the coalition does all of our work in work groups so that we're having more community buy-in. But these were the thought partners and leaders behind this, and I'm just deeply thankful to everything that you give to this movement. So thank you. Thanks for coming up here. And then finally, I promise, I just want to recognize the board of House Our Neighbors. And I am one of those people, so I'm just going to stay here. But John, will you come up here? For those who don't know, this is John Burbank. He formed the Economic Opportunity Institute and is now the president of the board for the House Our Neighbors C4. And yes. And Professor Zach Wood had to leave. I know he had a sick kid. And then Mauricio from Washington Can is also on there, but is not here today. So thank you very much for coming up here. But that's the board. I'm done talking. I know there are many other people here that I would like to thank, but I promise you this was going to be short, and I'm not keeping that promise. So thank you very much. Naisheen.